This is TLV1.
The Tel Aviv Review with Gilad Halpern.
Hello and welcome to the Tel Aviv Review, a program dedicated to the word, to the thought and to debate, brought to you by the Van Leer Jerusalem Institute, which promotes humanistic, democratic and liberal values in the social discourse in Israel. I'm your host Gilad Halpern, and every week I'll be engaging in close encounters of the intellectual kind with writers and scholars, or simply people of ideas of all types and vocations who have done something to make our lives a tad more interesting. My guest today is an archaeologist and lecturer in Israel heritage at Ariel University, who is one of the champions in Israel of the community approach to archaeology, that is, opening the excavation of the past to the public and harnessing them in studying and understanding it. Dr. Itzick Shai, hello and welcome to the Tel Aviv Review.
Hello to you.
So let's start with your perspective, with your approach, the community approach to archaeology. Is it a new thing in the world or just in Israel? Where did it come from?
It's not new. For years, most of the projects use volunteers from Israel and abroad. During the last decade or two, in the whole world, the issue of cultural heritage became more and more important in relation to archaeology. And it became clear to everyone that archaeology is part of a cultural heritage, and the sites are not only belong to us, the archaeologists, it is related to everyone. And we, of course, have our own questions that interested us about specific site or sites, but the history of the sites should belong to everyone, and we have to open it to everyone.
Mm-hmm. So what are really the benefits that uninitiated archaeologists, laymen, bring to the endeavor of excavating the past?
Well,
let me ask you more specifically. Do you feel that the volunteers that you have around you at the site, the non-archaeologists, do you feel that they get in your way, or do you feel that they really help you?
Both. And I will explain. For example, at least in our project at Tel Burna, we bring every year at least one class of kids. And as you know, kids, some of them can be very, very interested in the project, but some of them, it's like a pain. So they don't like it. And it's really very depend on who is coming. In general, volunteers that come from abroad, and they pay a lot of money for this, usually they would like to be part of the project and they try to do as much as they can. But we have also families that come for a few hours. And again, the parents usually want to be more active, and sometimes the kids are less interested. Mm-hmm. So it's really depends.
Is there, by the way, you were mentioning people who come from abroad, is it an industry? Are there archaeology buffs around the world who come to Israel especially to take part in excavations? Have you come across them?
Yes, there are people. Usually it's students, but not only. For example, last year we had a group from China, about 6 or 7 people who came for a week. It was their first time in Israel. They never excavate. They didn't know anything about archaeology, but they were Christian Chinese, so it was very exciting for them to take part on exposing the Bible. It was very unique experience for both sides.
There are some people like that. It wasn't an unusual phenomenon.
Yes. At least every year we have.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so sorry, we digressed a bit. Let's go back to community archaeology. Now, the implication of the public, especially in an area that is so politicized like archaeology, it is problematic, isn't it? Because people may want to use archaeology as an extra grind of sorts, justify and to consolidate their own narrative or worldview. It can spiral out of hand, can't it?
It can, but it depends on how you deal with it. I'll give you my own example. I am the head of the Institute of Archaeology at Ariel University, and we all know where is Ariel University.
Except those who don't, it's in the West Bank.
Yeah. Yes, but still, my point of view, I take myself as a science person, and I'm conduct science in archaeology. And I think that most of my colleagues don't know my political affiliation, and I can guarantee that at least 30% of the professors at Ariel University are on the left side of the political map. And again, no one knows my attitude and my side in this situation, and I'm doing archaeology.
No, that's all fair. Of course, you earned your credentials as an academic. I'm talking about the people. I mean, what I'm asking is, are there people who do it for the wrong reasons?
Oh, what are the wrong reasons? I'm not sure that I know what are the wrong reasons. I can give you an example. Some people think that if they will come to dig in a biblical site, they will, will prove or unprove that David was there or wasn't. I don't think that anyone can do something like this. I think that after a few weeks or even few days with us, people can start to understand what is archaeology and what is biblical archaeology today. And it's not as simple as it sounds. We are not going to prove or unprove the Bible. We are just dealing with the archaeology of the period of the Bible. And this is, of course,
and people who are there to prove the Bible learn after a while that it's not going to happen and drop out.
Well, I'm sure that there are some people that they come with their own thoughts and they still think the same, but...
Right. Okay, let's go now to Tel Burna, that site you mentioned where you currently work and you have done for the past 7 years.
Yes.
It's in the coastal lowlands in southwestern Israel. And that's where you apply this approach of community archaeology. Is it, by the way, the only place in Israel where community archaeology is happening?
No. Today, community archaeology became more and more common in Israel, usually not by large projects from universities, because we are digging usually about something between 4 to 6 weeks a year.
Why not year-round?
Because, first of all, we are teaching in the universities.
Right.
And second, about 6 weeks a year is full of analyzing the finds for more than a year.
I see. Okay. It gives you enough to go for the next...
Yeah, but in any way, since we dig such a short period, universities, professors prefer volunteers that you won't deal with kids and other things, so you can concentrate on archaeology and the excavations, the finds, the analysis, and not with all these logistic. And I'm telling you, I have kids every year. It's a lot of work for me. I don't need them as manpower. That's not the issue. But I really think that the benefits, it's not for now to my project, it's for generations.
Okay, so let's now talk about the actual archaeology at Tel Burna. The interesting thing about it is that unlike other archaeological sites in Israel, of which, of course, as we know, there are many, this one is relatively understudied. I mean, you are the first serious project happening there.
Yeah. The site is well known for more than a century to the scholars community, but no one ever conducted an excavations there, only surface survey. And for example, there were several identification suggestions with biblical sites, but this was based on geographical, historical considerations. And now, after 7 years, we believe that the identification of the site, for example, with biblical Libna, a site that is mentioned several times in the Bible, is much more founded now due to the excavations that we have been excavated.
What's the story of Libna?
Well, Libna is one of the cities that Joshua conquered, and it is also mentioned as one of the cities of the tribe of Judah in the Shephelah. It was mentioned as a Levite city, and also in the 9th century BC. It's very interesting. It's mentioned in the 2nd Kings that the city revolts against Jerusalem, against King Jehoram. And for example, this can be only if it's a border site. And you mentioned that I choose this specific site. The main reason was to study borders in ancient times. This region of the Shephelah is in between the hill country, which is Judah, and the coastal plain, which is Philistia. And the location of this site is very attractive for this specific study.
So the actual mound is consisted of many layers from many periods, centuries are buried under it. Can you tell us a bit, about the fact that it was a border location? Did it change hands? How can you determine about the role that it played as a border region?
Well, as you mentioned, the settlement in this site began in the 3rd millennium BCE and continued throughout the first half of the 1st millennium BCE, about more than 2,000 years. We can see throughout those years that the size of the site is changing all over, and also we're trying to understand the material culture of the inhabitants for each period. And for example, we can see in the Iron Age, and this is very easy, that the people who live there, they are Judeans. This is based on, for example, on the administration evidence that we see there. We have all kinds of stamped handles with the Judean administration. Or we have Judean pillar figurines, which are figurines for probably Ashtoret, one of the goddess. But when you making a map where you have those figurines, this is the map of Judah. So clearly we are in Judah. The question is not only who are the inhabitants. For example, as I mentioned before, in the 9th century BCE, this site, which was settled by Judeans, revolt against Jehoram. So the people were Judeans, but they didn't like the king in Jerusalem. And for example, later in the 7th century BCE, we see that King Josiah from Jerusalem take his wife from Libnah. So he knows that this is a complicated region, and he tried to engage it
one that you need to appease.
So he engaged those people with the royal family as he take his wife from Libnah.
And what about their relationship with the Philistines?
This is another issue, because we see, for example, Philistine Gat, which is about 9 kilometers north of Tel Burna. It's Tel Asafi. We see it very, very clear from the top of the site. And we also see that the site is fortified in the 9th century BCE. This is the period that Philistine Gat was the major urban center in Israel. So probably... And
how far away was it from...
9 kilometers north of Tel Burna. And 9 kilometers south of Tel Burna is the site of Lachish, which is the main Judean site in the Shephelah region. So probably Tel Burna is like a stronghold that the kingdom of Judah or someone in the kingdom of Judah built in between Lachish, the main Judean site, and Philistine Gat, the main Philistine site, because Lachish cannot see Gat, but Tel Burna can see Gat and also Lachish.
Okay, so it's a strategic location and a sort of a crossroads as well. And later, in the 6th century, it was completely destroyed by the Babylonian conquest, right?
Yes, the site was abandoned in the early 6th century BCE, probably due to the Babylonian conquest of Judah and the exile, and we have almost nothing later than the 6th century BCE at Tel Burna here and there.
So you think there was a systematic expulsion of the inhabitants of Tel Burna?
Probably. Probably.
All right. And up to the end of the period that you study, what can you tell us about what happened later?
later than the 6th century BCE. Almost, the site was almost abandoned. Here and there we have small finds, but nothing really special. Interestingly, in 1948, the independent war, we have evidence for Israeli soldiers that were there and fight against the Egyptian army that came all the way to the north. And we have several spots in the fortification system that was built in the 9th century BCE where we have evidence for a pit that was dug by one of those soldiers, and next to it we have tons of bullet cases, which means that this fortification was in the right location in the 9th century BCE, but also in the 20th century, just less than 68.
68 years ago. Has it been written about by former soldiers, by war historians of the War of Independence?
There are evidence from, I think it's Palmach troops that were there, and yes.
So they actually used it as a military outpost, just like their ancestors 2,500 years ago.
Yeah.
Incredible. All right, Dr. Itzick Shai, I'm afraid this is all we have time for today, but thank you very much for coming in today and telling us about community archaeology and about Tel Burna. And if you listeners out there want to come and volunteer, it's again happening this summer. When exactly?
We will start on June 19th until July 15th, and everyone are welcome.
Great. Okay. Dr. Itzick Shai, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
And also big thanks to Alex Benish, our sound engineer today, and to the Van Leer Institute for all their generous support. If you like this podcast, there are many more where it came from. Just go to www.tlv1.fm/podcasts and take your pick.
שביר מתפורר בקלות מעמיס על עצמו את כל העולם נושר כמו עלה למשב